What do you teach students your first day in class?
I teach several classes here at NIFA. Yeah, and I've been with NIFA for quite some time, I would say probably 12 years. So I was teaching different range of classes, anything from very specific technical to very much like hands-on practical like camera exercises, lighting exercises. And what we specifically do today here is the lighting techniques, different lighting techniques, and basically analyzing functions of each light and what each light does to the scene and how we light the face of actor using anything from one simple light bulb to 7 different lights.
What are the basics of cinematography?
Well, basic of cinematography really is writing with light, really, which is what cinematography, in the name itself, it says writing with the light. So we as cinematographers create images which are supposed to support the emotion of the story, and that basically cinematography is all about, like telling the story and creating emotional response visually.
Should a new cinematographer start with a basic camera package, or should they invest in an expensive, advanced one and learn and sort of move up the ranks that way?
Absolutely, starting with the basic and essential is the key. I think in everything, and I think in every profession, in every job in the film industry specifically, because more than ever now it's so easy to get access to the cameras, which will give you a really good image and really make it so easy. You can finish everything, pretty much shoot and finish on your iPhone, which when I was starting was like science fiction, basically. So starting with a simple basic package to understand the basic principles of cinematography, anything from the framing, the composition, the lighting, is a great start. And once you understand how the old basic elements work together, then no camera will be too complicated for you. Everything will be so easy to understand. You know, if you shoot on iPhone or if you shoot with a small little Canon 5D, whatever, if you get a red Dragon or red Raptor, or if you get Venice 2, it's going to be easy. Pretty much the same principle, same elements. You're just going to have more beautiful image.
Suki, what is the language of filmmaking?
Well, language of filmmaking, that's a big question. Well, as a cinematographer, for me, the language really is the emotional impact of lights and shadows. For cinematographers. For writers, obviously, it's a written word. For the actors, it's what's hidden behind the word. For the editor, what is between the shots. What's the rhythm. For director, well, pretty much everything.
Does a cinematographer need to understand story?
The most essential thing for cinematographers is understanding the story, especially if you are doing cinematography, narrative world, scripted world. Even in the documentary world, slightly different, but still, we are basically telling the story. We are storytellers. We just use different elements to tell our stories. Writers will use a word, you know. Editors will use pacing and rhythm. Actors will use their interpretation of the written word. And cinematographers will use lights, shadows, composition, movement, all these elements which are available to us as cinematographers to convey the same idea and tell the story. So for me, really, when it comes down to how the story works for cinematographer is, if you make a film, if you make anything that is visual, and if it's in a narrative world, if you're able to show this piece to anybody without sound, and people will still understand what's going on, what's the message or what's the story about, that means as a cinematographer you did a good job.
And speaking of story and what it's about, I think I've heard you say that filmmakers today are just trying to get clicks instead of actually tell a story. Can we talk about that?
Well, you know, cinematography as art form has been going through transformation like everything else. You know, we live in different times. The way we communicate visually has completely changed in the last 5 years, the last 10 years. more than anything else. So with the obviously presence of social media in our everyday life, we do communicate visually more than ever, which is kind of interesting. But we have to make distinction between what is visual communication and what is just like sending the message, which is visual. Visual storytelling for cinematographer is really, again, being able to understand the story and convey the emotion by all the elements available to you as a cinematographer. If you are just a content creator, which is unfortunately the word which is being used more and more, but content creator is not cinematographer. Not everybody who takes the picture is photographer. Not everybody who plays guitar is the musician. You might just have access to something, but at the end, it's really what you make makes somebody think about what you did. And like we have films that we have seen that stay with us for life. Then you did something. If you're doing something just for clicks, if you're doing something that will make somebody take a look, whatever visual information, visual content, I don't like that word, but that's part of present world that we live in, that particular content might be gone in 2 seconds and you'll forget about it. So we are constantly bombarded. This is obviously a big topic, but we are constantly bombarded with all the visual elements, visual little clips, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all other, whatever is available nowadays, whatever the flavor of the month is with the social media, is created actually to get you constantly stimulated with whatever visual content is. Doesn't mean that visual content has an emotional impact. Some of them, yes, they have shocking value, but that's a whole another thing. But I think we have to make clear that these two things are different and very different. Anybody can make visuals, but not every visual is art form.
You've talked to filmmakers and you've asked them why they're doing what they're doing. Why film? Why this story? When you first picked up a camera, what did you ask yourself? It is
in my particular case, it was a magic, I think, really what drew me into filmmaking. And I know exactly. I know the day when I took my first black and white picture, my image, still photography. I started still photography like most cinematographers did. So I remember I was in elementary school and I was just given like 35 millimeter camera and I was playing with this camera. I'm like, okay, now that's what it is. You point, you should press the button and something will happen. So I remember going to the darkroom, exposing this piece of negative and looking in the chemical, in the tray as the piece of paper all of a sudden started becoming alive. And this piece of paper became a picture, became image, which I actually still have at home. So to me, that was magic, really, in a pure form, magic. Maybe at that point, maybe in that stage in my life, on everything, to me, that was a magic that really caught me and said, I want to do something about this because this is really, really so much to learn, so much to explore. And then later on, as I made a very conscious decision to dedicate my life to images, still photography as well as the motion pictures. The best thing what I found about it, there's always magic to it. There's always excitement to it. And I don't think many professions are out there that can give you that kind of level of excitement and uncertainty that you have when you're doing what I'm doing or what we as cinematographers do. The ability to act on the moment, react in a moment, make decisions in a moment, not know what you're doing in a moment. The big mystery about it is we might look like we know what we're doing, but this is art. There's no formula. You saw it now when we're doing let's see what happens. The best thing about what we do is let's see what happens. And you put the light, you pan the light and oh my God, that looks interesting. There's no way I would know what would happen. No way, I don't know. But I can maybe try to see what would happen if we put the 5K behind the wall and pan it to the lens and I have some kind of, filter on the lens or something, all of a sudden the light becomes alive. To me, that's magic. And you just witnessed it like 10 minutes ago.
I'm wondering what you think of this quote here. I don't think about a shot, I feel a shot. I just do what I feel.
That's exactly what it is. You don't think about shot. You are there in the moment. It's like a famous photographer, André Cartier-Bresson, said something that he doesn't take picture takes him. There's that moment that you witness, that you point the camera, you get the moment, and that becomes forever. Never before, never later, but that particular moment is what this image is. So for cinematographers, you don't think about the shot. It's like, I use a lot of analogy, usually with cooking and music, because I like both. I think also I would use a quote by Miles Davis. He said something about the note that you don't play is equally important or more important than the one that you play. So I would apply the same logic to cinematography. It's not about that particular shot. That particular shot might be interesting, but if this particular shot as a part of the whole story or sequence or whatever works well and it feels right, then you're doing a good job. Then this is good art. Then you're creating something that is just not only image or particular shot, but it's emotional response. And again, everything comes down to your emotional response. You either have emotional response or you don't. As a cinematographer, somebody who is creating it, as well as people who are watching it, it's the same kind of, you're doing it for the audience. You want people to experience what you experienced as you are right there in the moment when camera is rolling and everything's happening and you feel great about it.
And as with Miles Davis, he had to reinvent himself many times. Do you tell that sometimes to your students, that your art will change, it will morph into different things?
It changes from moment to moment. It changes during the day. I show up on the set sometimes and I have an idea what I'm going to do. I have an idea. Because director and I talked about it. Director and I talked about what we're going to do, how we're going to do the scene. We all agree about it. And then all of a sudden you look at something and say, you know what, forget it, let's do this. Let's do this. You react in a moment. You have instinctive reaction to what's happening. Or you just simply say, forget about it, let's just do this. Let's just do this because I feel strongly that the way I was planning to light the scene might work better if I do it this way. So it's constantly changing. Our profession is constantly changing. That's another beautiful thing about cinematography, is because not every profession has gone through so much transformation as cinematography is, from early days of, hand cranking camera and then creating some most amazing, beautiful, like Technicolor big epic movies and using huge lights, big. We still have some of them here, and now coming that you can actually shoot a scene by just using your phone, little light here, little light there. So the way I understand lighting, in its essence, is still the same. But practically how I'm doing it makes it much easier. Now I can put like one light here, one light there, looks great. It's giving me something that I can work with. So it's constantly changing, cameras are changing. I'm constantly relearning, when it comes down to lighting in particular, I'm constantly relearning my craft and my art too, because as much as I have my own personal taste about what I think is right, what I think is not, cinematography or visuals are also part of the, our moment that we live in. So something is very fashionable now, might not be fashionable in 2-3 years. And we all know, like it used to be times when everybody was doing like zooming in, zooming out, like back in 60s and 70s, because people get excited about new tools, new technology. And all of a sudden, like there was also a moment when everything was just handheld and crazy and people can, okay, that's enough. So it's constantly evolving, and that's the best thing about cinematography. I will never be in a position that I can say, okay, I think there's nothing more to learn. No, there is no way that will ever happen.
People say that you should turn off the sound and know what a movie is saying. How do you accomplish this as a cinematographer?
Well, that's kind of what we discussed earlier, because to make a movie, not only movie, to communicate visually in a narrative format that we are mostly doing here, everybody has to do their job. Everything has to function, from the written script to the way it was lit, the way it was performed and edited, put together with the sound, with the music, with the effects. So all these elements work together. And with all these elements work together, which we have seen in some beautiful films when everything's perfect. Production design, the costume, the makeup, the sound, everything's great. So this is when you have a perfect or almost perfect film, TV show, episode, or just like visual piece. But cinematography itself is just part of the whole process. It's one component. And obviously, in order to understand cinematography, it's a visual medium. So you have to be able to communicate, before anything, visually. If the visual emotion if the emotion of the story is communicated not only in a written world, not only through the sound, through the production design, but if it's also captured with the given proper mood, then you definitely are doing a good job. And a part of what we did today was a kind of that thing, talking about, okay, what happens if you just change one light? If you go this way and put it this way, or if you turn off this light, how emotionally we responded to that? What happens if light is here versus here? How emotionally we respond to that? So these are kind of things which, as cinematographers, we have to understand. And today, the whole morning class was pretty much dedicated to understanding and cultivating your taste. And I think the taste is the key thing. And that's why schools are for. Schools are for cultivating taste. There are people who are geniuses playing music. Yeah, they're genius, natural geniuses. But there are also people who study very hard, work really hard, practice 8 hours a day, and they become really skilled professionals. And they know how they play. They know what they do, and why they do what they do. And same thing with the cinematography. Same thing with cooking. I like to use a lot of analogy with cooking, because I was explaining to my students, like we cannot start a dish. But what type of dish is what kind of genre equivalent is like what we're doing? What kind of movie we are making? Are we making comedy? We're making drama? We're making something very dramatic or something very abstract or stylized? Well, that also depends what kind of ingredients you're going to use. And balance of all these ingredients will tell you how your dish is going to come out. And because we are all different, we have different taste. No two dishes will be the same. Same thing with the film, with the cinematography. You take 5 cinematographers, bring them in the room. They will all do same story, same scene, but there will be always some nuances. And these nuances are what makes us so unique. Like having good wine and difference between Pinot and Cabernet, or some Cabernet Franc, or some Bordeaux, or it's like there are all these nuances. They're all good wines, but somebody just might like a little bit more full body or fruitiness of wine, or maybe a little bit more, kick of the other one, and that's kind of how it is.
Like in Sideways.
Yeah, exactly.
Going back to the black and white photo that you took and that you still have today, were you ever bad at cinematography?
I think I was never good in cinematography. So I'm always improving, I'm always learning. So being bad or being good, that's a very relative term, Again, going back to what we're talking today, we are showing to students and demonstrating that putting light in the place which is really not emphasizing features of the character, of the talent, might be really looking bad. But if for the story that we are going for, and for what this character is supposed to look like, that might be perfect, so that might be right. So something might not look appealing, looking at some very dramatic lighting, but it might be perfect for the story. And I brought two examples. One was for a movie called Domino, where Keira Knightley is playing really tough woman being the bounty hunter. And she was photographed in the most harshest light you can think about. And exactly the reason for this, because photography, not being beautiful, but being very hard, very harsh, brought up the hardness and complexity of the character. Another example I took was, of course, Godfather. Godfather, when it came out, everybody was talking Gordon Willis will be fired, he will never work in Hollywood because that was bad. It was bad photography, it was bad, but, well, yes, he was the only one who dared to photograph somebody using the top light without seeing people's eyes, and, that was very daring. But when you think about it, that was a perfect choice. When you're photographing, mafia bosses and who are very, very shady and dark characters. So you're not going to make them look beautiful and glamorous and everything. There is certain style that comes from the story, comes from the character, and you as a cinematographer have to figure it out how to make it happen.
If you are interested in storytelling, you may also like our new book, Story Questions, the sponsor of today's video. It's a story tool that offers you over 1,500 story questions that you can use as story prompts. It's packed with over 40 categories, so whether you are in the brainstorming stages, developing characters, dialogue, or rewriting, it can help you at every stage of the writing process. Think about this statement. Most powerful stories are just great answers to strong questions. We've linked up to story questions in the information section below. Now back to the interview.
What do you consider bad cinematography?
Ooh, bad cinematography. I would say bad cinematography is something that is when the form takes over the content. Bad cinematography is gimmicky. Bad cinematography is something that's just there for its sake, on its own. Bad cinematography is there that is just making images which have no reason, really, or they're not founded in anything. There's no intent behind the images. And I would not even call it cinematography. I would call it content, and that's what nowadays we live in a world of people creating content, calling themselves cinematographer, but you're not really telling the story. You're just creating something that is gimmicky, flashy, like all these TikTok videos and stuff, which are designed to just grab your attention, get a click and move on. Bad cinematography is something that you watch and you forget and never think about it again.
What was the hardest part of learning cinematography for you?
For me, well, everything's hard and nothing is hard, really, when you look at this. Like, to me, the hardest part was to really get into that. Like, I get in cinematography completely, I would say, by accident. I never had intention, really, to become a cinematographer. Or secretly, I wanted to really study photography in my high school days. Because I love photography, that's what I was doing. And when I was already enrolled in a college to study something completely different, something that was very technical, let's say, engineering. But I always felt, okay, this is going to be a good profession because it suits my sensibilities and it's a good thing. But then secretly there was always this, what if I maybe try to study something visual, something like photography? The problem back in Yugoslavia when I was there was no real school for photography. Like, you could not study photography. There are only few schools in Europe that you can actually go in college and study photography, still photography. But for me, it was like the closest thing to photography was cinematography, which is kind of still photography, but in motion. So I got to college to study something I really don't know anything about. Did not know anything about cinematography. I did not know what a camera is. I kind of knew it's similar to still camera, but it has more film. The lenses are much more complicated than the one I had on my camera. So I would say probably that first year or 2 years in a film school was the most difficult for me, but also at the same time most exciting and more challenging because I'm making a decision to dedicate the rest of my life to something which I don't know anything about. which is crazy. But on the other hand, it's exciting. And I never regretted that decision I did.
What was the hardest part or parts for you to learn?
Well, there is one technology aspect, and there is also creative aspect. Like for me, being still a photographer, which is the way I was doing, it was like you see, you point, and you take a picture. That's what most of the photography that I do still is. So you kind of react to what is in front of you. And then you react to the moment and hoping that the emotion that you capture in that moment will be something that will be captured forever in that one film, in that one frame. And the people looking at your picture will have the same emotional response. Well, for cinematography, it's completely different. Cinematography it's not, especially when talking about narrative format, it's not that something is going to happen, you capture it in hope. No, you have to think backwards. You know what kind of emotional response you have to create, and you have to make it happen. Then you have to use the tools, aesthetically, technically. What type of light? How you create the mood? How is this mood going to translate to the whole picture? That's one thing. But then, okay, but how you capture that mood? What kind of lights? What kind of lenses? What kind of cameras? So there's all technical aspect to this. So this fusion between the emotional response, which is the ultimate, what you're trying to get with your images, and the technical and technological aspect that, okay, but here are the tools, how to get to that. And you hope it's going to work. And that's the thing, you just hope. So you use that lens, you use that light, you put this and this and this and this, and the actors are acting and you're recording and you're filming it, and then when it's all together, you hope it's going to work. And in my case, it worked most of the time. Of course, I had moments like, well, it didn't work. Didn't work, what can I do? I tried. Maybe didn't think right. But also they gave me a chance to think, okay, well, I know what I did last time and it did not work, so I know I should not do this again. And it's kind of like a learning process constantly. That's what's good about it.
Is there an element of risk and magic, or you can make it seem that way if you know the tools?
There's always risk. I think there's always risk involved, and that's what, again, makes it so exciting. Because you can never say, oh, I know how to do this, I'm going to do this way, that way. I changed my mind in the middle of the shot, in the middle of the setup, like, oh, no, actually turn off this light. I think I like it better. What I was thinking, I don't know, but this doesn't work. So let's go this way, and you act on your instinct. When it comes down to magic, well, I think filmmaking used to be magic, not anymore, as it still is, but not to the extent as it was while we were doing film. Because filming it on motion picture film is still that element of magic that after you expose the film, there's something captured in this emulsion. But until this emulsion goes through the process, gets developed, gets transferred, and then you don't know what's in there. Nobody knows what's in there. And you would take a risk and say, well, maybe I should go really dark on this one. Maybe I should just turn off all the lights, maybe leave one light, and hopefully it should work. And I'm not saying I would do that. Every cinematographer I know, very accomplished cinematographers, will do the same thing. Conrad Hall was notorious for doing this kind of stuff because he's like, he was always pushing things, always like pushing beyond anybody else. And the excitement or anxiety that you have between the moment the film goes to the lab and the moment you see your dailies projected or transferred is very nerve-wracking. Well, with the arrival of digital cinematography, with the arrival of digital technology, well, there's the only thing I can say, I sleep better nowadays, like really, because I know what I'm getting. Like I can see right away, okay, yeah, we have a monitor, we have a camera. I don't rely too much on monitor or camera. I don't, because I'm still trained using my light meter. I take my light meter, okay, 2.8, and same thing I did with my student today. We walked on stage and said, okay, so what lens we're going to use? What's the f-stop? What is the sensitivity of the camera? And we're going to light it. So our exposure is 2.8. And I use my light meter and set it up here. Like there's going to be one stop over the key, 2 stops under the key, 2 stops over, whatever, so we just do this. I know in my mind what light is going to do just by using a meter. And then we look at the monitor like, oh, okay, that looks good. So, yes, there is a mystery in the moment when you're turning on, but again, everybody can see what's happening, so that mystery is kind of gone.
I believe you said that the camera should not be noticed by the audience. How do you go into a shot and make sure that the camera is actually, once someone views it, that the camera is almost like a non-entity?
Well, here's the thing, really, what comes down to what really cinematography is. Like what I was saying before, that the filmmaking process is a team process, and everybody contributes their part. When film is good, when film is great, you don't notice cinematography. You don't notice production design. You don't notice visual effects. You don't notice makeup, hair, editing, music. You don't notice any of that, but it's there. So cinematography should not really drive attention to itself. I will use analogy. Orchestra. When you listen to good orchestra, well-balanced orchestra, well-conducted orchestra, every section of instruments does their thing, and everything sounds really perfect, nice and balanced. There is no particular flute or a clarinet or cello out of 4 cellos or 6, depending on the orchestra, that will stand out. It will stand out if it's a solo concerto for cello or for piano. But in general, if you have a music piece, if it's a symphony or something like that, everything's balanced. Everything's balanced. Everything fits, and everybody, you take away strings, well, it's not the same thing. Take away wind and brass, it's not the same thing. But put it all together, it's a perfect piece. So same thing with the cinematography. It's, if your images are so well following the story, and images on their own are not attracting attention to themselves, then you're doing a good job. That's good cinematography. That's like in the music again, same thing. When you have a band that plays well, then it's all perfectly balanced. You can have. I will use another example, which I really like. Herbie Hancock was playing at some point with Miles Davis, and as they're playing the piece, Herbie played a chord, and he is very accomplished. Even back then, he was a very accomplished pianist. So he hit the chord that was off. Happens, you play and you hit a chord which is slightly off. So what Miles Davis did is he was playing, he changed his way, to change the key that he was playing to make this chord, to make this chord sound right, to make it like part of the whole composition. So that's kind of the same thing in the cinematography. You have to be able to respond to the moment. And if not, if something happens that is not necessarily something that you planned, but you recognize it, you go for it. And it's, again, always good result.
I believe you said that a lot of new filmmakers end up overlighting their scenes.
Yes, that's always natural response, because overlighting, and sometimes I do it myself. I just find myself sometimes like, oh, let's put this light, because it's available. And, but again, overlighting means like, it comes from normal insecurity, which we all have on a set. Everybody has insecurities, which is what makes jobs so excited. You don't know what you're doing. You kind of know what you're doing, but not really. So to protect yourself, you're going to put one more light there, one more light there. And you might need it, you might not. But today in the class, which I think it was really interesting class, because I really demonstrated to students how you can light the whole scene with one light bulb, simple light bulb. But you can also have 7 other lights, maybe even more than 7 lights in the whole thing. And you can use all of 7, you can use 6, you can use 5, you can use 3. It all depends on taste. And again, going back to what we talk about, taste. Taste is what education and learning and training is all about. Like, once you understand, and you can see right away, oh, if you turn off this light, look at the hair. Okay, oh, okay, I see. So that's why this light is there. Now, do I like it? No, I don't. Let's turn it off. Let's go brave. Let's go without that light. Or maybe put another light right there, or put a 5K and make the flare because it might look good. That's responding in a moment that you don't plan, but recognizing as opportunity, and you grab it. So that's kind of how things work.
I think you've said too to stay away from interior shots where you're dependent on natural light.
Very difficult is to go when you are in, obviously, when you are in interior. The reason why we have stages is because you want to be in control. You want to control the light, you want to create a mood. And more importantly, once you create a mood, you want to maintain the mood. You can be on a stage, make it look like day, and it will be day as long as you want. It can be night as long as you want. Doesn't matter, right? You're not chasing the light. You're not chasing the harshness of the sunlight or deep shadows or anything that is thrown at you at any given location. But if you're outside on location, you're really depending on what's happening at any given time of the day. What time the sun is coming up, what sun is sunset, what time you lose the light, what if clouds come in, what if you lose the cloud cover. It's a whole kind of things that are much more difficult to control. So the point obviously is you want to make things too consistent and make sure that all the visually, that what you shoot in the morning and the end of the day fits together visually. It's connected. If you have a location and your interior is on location, let's say you have a house and the house is looking outside, which I've had a million times situation, then proper planning is the key. Then you know, okay, between 8 and 11, the sun is coming from this window here, so we can use it because at 4 in the afternoon, we're going to lose the sunlight. And if we did not finish the scene that was facing the sunlight, it's not going to work. So proper planning is even more difficult because if you don't have control, even in interior, you are still depending on the daylight, depending on the position of the sunlight, and even the weather condition. What if it starts raining? Then makes your job very, very difficult and very challenging. I will tell you an interesting story. I did a movie in Canada years ago, and it's supposed to be kind of like split screen, 3 shots, And simple shot is that each of the characters gets in the car and drives away. So we shot it in Canada. It was in fall in Vancouver. So during the day, we shot the first car, and the next day, we shot the second car. And then started raining, and raining, and raining, and raining, and we could not get the third shot. And it has to feel is the same time. One character at their house, one character at his house, and his house. Well, we had 2 sunny shots for first 2 characters, but it's raining on the third one, and it cannot work that way. We tried everything, did not work. And then at the end, we ended up shooting this at night in the rain. It was a big production, covering set, big lights, things that we would literally point the camera and roll became like big deal because we have no control over it. And it worked at the end, but it was very, very challenging. Simple shot, 1 shot.
How does a new cinematographer come to understand lighting?
How a new cinematographer comes to understand lighting is by failing, by doing things that you might think it works, but it doesn't. You have to really try and fail in order to understand. Lighting is not a simple thing. These are tools. Each of these lights does something different. There's so many lights, more than ever nowadays. But in its essence, light is a light. You learn from nature. You have to learn how to observe what light does in nature. And then if you get in a dark stage like here, when you put one light and turn it on, you have to understand what this light does. So the hardest thing here for cinematographers is to grasp the concept that you can create with the light that you see in your mind. You have to see the image. You have to feel the image as you read the script. Like, okay, it's going to be like that, okay. And then for this, I need this, and this, and this, and this. And plan it properly to make sure it's all in place. That's the key thing, I think, for cinematographers to understand, and that comes with experience. You might have, of course, experience, but talent too. You have to have a certain level of talent. But I think equally as talent, it's more important that you are constantly doing and sharpening your skills, understanding and learning about lights. I learn about lights all the time. Like all the time. Even today I learned about some light that one of my students opened, like, oh, that's interesting light, okay. I will memorize that one. So that's a process, constantly learning. And so for the new cinematographers, that's the biggest, I would say, the challenge for the new cinematographers is thinking that you can just point the camera and shoot. Yes, you can. More than ever. More than ever, you can just point the camera, you will get image. You will get image in total darkness. Take your iPhone, point in total darkness, you will get image. Well, is this image cinematography? I don't think so. It's not. But it's image. Do you need to light it? You still need to light it because lighting and understanding lighting is what gives you control. What gives you as a cinematographer tools that you can tell the story. It's the same way like you can take a blank canvas. You still have to use certain type of brush to do certain things. If you don't know what brush is for what, you'll not be able to paint a picture. Or at least you'll not be able to paint a picture that you would like to paint, picture that you see in your mind. Or if somebody commissions you to do your portrait and you don't know how to use a specific combination of colors and brushes and everything, you will not be able to deliver, which is kind of what we do as cinematographers. You're given a script, you talk with the director, you talk to producers, you have all the kind of discussions, creative discussions, reference images, all kind of stuff, and then you show up on the set, okay, and where's my image? And it's like, oops, I didn't get this light because I did not know I might need that light or something like that. So that's when you really have to know what you're doing. And in order to achieve that point, you have to do as much as possible mistakes, errors. Like I was lucky to do in the school, and that's what school is for. School is to try and you might succeed or you might fail, but I still believe that this is the best process and it stays with you for life. As all my student films and my little exercises I did when I was in film school stayed with me. I know exactly the lights what I was pointing. I even know now all the lights, or majority of the light, what I did with lights in any of the films and TV shows or anything that I've done, because it stays with you. It's part of your whole creative, persona.
What do most new cinematographers get wrong with backlighting?
Well, backlighting, like any other, each light has a reason, has a purpose. You can use a backlight. Backlight tends to make things look a little bit more interesting, more dramatic. But you have to know the reason why. Why you're going to use a backlight? Like exactly what we did this morning. Okay, we put the backlight. We put 3 backlights. Actually, we put 4 backlights. See what happens. And each of these backlights does something different. We have up there that one outlines and give a texture to the talent. But to make it even more interesting, the first person we had when we were setting light had completely different hair. It was very blonde and light. And that light that we set for that person looked completely different when we get another talent. So that's another thing that you're like, okay, that backlight might be, there's no universally applicable backlight. They all do the same thing, but depending what you're lighting, it will give you a certain look or not. Same thing we talk about haze, like if you use a smoke. Okay, backlight, you have to have some kind of backlight, but how much of the backlight you're going to use? Well, depends on how much smoke you have. Obviously, the stronger the backlight, the less the smoke you have. The more in your direct access with your camera, the backlight might be too strong. And it's very easy to overdo it. Like, again, with cooking, it's very easy to overdo the steak if you don't know exactly what cut and what's the temperature and what's the time and what taste you're going for. Are you going for medium rare, or you're going for rare, or for, God forbid, medium well? So that's kind of what it comes to. Like, you have to know what you're trying to achieve with that and everything that light does in order to be in control of it.
What do new cinematographers get wrong with key lights?
Well, when it comes down to key light, the key light is the main light, as the name says, key light. You can set only key light and shoot something if this is the right choice. One light. Any light can be key light, depending how you place it. What is important with the key light is what this light does to the subject, which is what we demonstrated this morning. Key light is when you put light over somebody's head, like light bulb, bare light bulb, and it looks really dramatic with deep eyes, shadows, and everything else. That's a key light. Looks ugly, yeah, but might be right for the scene. Key light is also when you take, like Fresnel and put it through some kind of diffusion material and gives you nice and softness. Key light is when you use a China ball and put it next to your talent and all of a sudden becomes nice and glowy. Key light is when you put, cucolores, that we had this little thing that creates shadows, but not too strong, just like right amount of shadow on the face, just to break it down and give it a texture. So this is a key light. It's like understanding first, what is the light that you're going for and what is that you're trying to achieve with that light. And that will tell you, okay, well, you want to go with strong Fresnel light with this and this in front, or you want to go just with light bulb, or you want to go with the China ball, or you want to go with the softbox, or you want to go with big diffusion source. This is what key light is. And how is this going to reflect, at the end, like how the image is going to look like? Is it going to be too much to the side, too much in front? And simply just moving light a couple inches can change everything. And that's what students should know. And I think they're getting that today that we're talking about. Just simply moving light just a couple inches away changes completely how the face looks like.
Is a cinematographer there to serve the director's vision?
At the end, everybody's serving the director's vision. That's how it is. Cinematographer is just like one part of the whole process. Important part, obviously, cinematographer is the one who has to translate what's written in the script into images. But at the end, every film is director's vision. It's like, again, analogy. If you're in orchestra, well, there is only one conductor who takes baton and then guides the orchestra. But there's also first violin, which is right there on the first chair at the end. That's a cinematographer. So that's how it works. That's the dynamic between cinematographer and a director. Yes, it's Herbert von Karajan conducting Mahler's symphony number whatever, but he's the one who is giving it a shape. But it's each group of musicians does their part to bring drama, to bring beauty of the composition. The same way the first violin is going to just take this solo and bring it exactly to it should be. So cinematographers does the same thing. We're part of the same process, and as much as our job is to be invisible, so is everybody else's job to be invisible, because we are all at the end serving one big idea. And yes, there are cinematographers who, sometimes they would go and do their own thing. And might look beautiful, but it might not be in function of the story. It's kind of you take on your own. You play in your own key. It doesn't happen so often, but sometimes it happens. It's just, we are all creative people, and if there is a good communication between cinematographer and director, then it's perfect. Then you guys are on in sync, and that's why we have such great teams when you think about cinematographers and directors for years and years, and films working together. Why? Because that's the understanding that they have. They work together and they know how to communicate and get the best out of each other.
Going back to what you said about Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis, knowing to make up for something where one lacked or one went off.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of how it is.
So that was my next question, was just what about the cinematographer's own vision, serving their vision?
Well, good cinematographers has no vision. Good cinematographer has no style. Style has to come from the written word. Style has to come from what script is about. And when you look at work of some great cinematographers, you know, Vittorio Storaro, Civo Lubecki, Roger Deakins, these guys, you know, Conrad Hall, you know, these guys are always reinventing themselves from the film to film. They look so different in one movie, but then so different in another movie. Why? Because the script is calling for specific look, for specific style, and that's, as a cinematographer, you have to be like a chameleon. You have to change and switch. And all of a sudden you're doing something that is all in very, very dark and moody. Another one is very colorful and bright. Another one is very static. Another one is completely moving and dynamic. And so it does not come from cinematographer's style or personal preference. Again, I can have personal preference to do certain kind of images, certain kind of movies, but I think it will be boring after a while, doing always the same thing. That's why big artists always go through phases, this phase and that phase, and you know, even musicians go through different phases, making albums, you know, R&B, and all of a sudden there is a country album by the same artist, and you know, why not? Why not? If you can, do it.
Does a cinematographer need to understand editing?
Yes, very important. Again, going back to, we are all part of the same process. We all contribute to the whole final movie. Understanding editing is so important. Understanding everybody's position as a cinematographer is very important. And but particularly, I think editing is key because as a cinematographer, you have to understand when you're creating certain shot. It's not only that shot, this shot is just part of the bigger picture. How is this shot going to fit as a piece of a puzzle to the whole thing? You have to understand how is this size going to match with another angle. And this shot now, in order to work, you have to have complementary matching angle if you're going talking just simple traditional coverage. If you have a wide master shot and coverage, you have to understand the rules of editing, the rules of combining shots, logics of the eye line, and many other things that you need to follow as a cinematographer to understand, which is not necessarily cinematography, but it is about continuity. And in order to maintain visual continuity, you have to understand that stuff. Same way with the editing. And also, you have to also understand if the shot that you are doing works without coverage, which is also part when the director steps in and says, no, this works fine. This is going to be a very elaborate, complicated dolly move, which will tell the story exactly how we need to tell the story. So there is no need now to even edit editing other than this is the beginning, this is the end. And then editing happens inside the frame itself, which is choreographed and well coordinated. And when staged, what we call mise en scène, basically it's the movement, coordinated movement between actors and the camera. And at every moment, the camera is giving you some interesting and new information that keeps your attention always going. So you never get bored by watching some interesting long. And we have seen movies, you know, like Birdman or Revenant or movies like that. It's like long, there's no like cutting. You don't need to. You have a pace, you have a rhythm. You bring audience into it and take you on a journey. That's how you do it. As a cinematographer, understanding, you know, that's the attention right away from the beginning that makes it, there will be no editing, or at least visible editing. So you combine all these elements and you work together with editor.
We know that every film starts with a script.
Yep.
Is this where you start when you begin a project?
Yes. It always starts with a script. It always starts from like, hey, this is the story. This is a script or this is a treatment. Read it and let's talk about it. Or book. This is a book. We're going to try to make a movie based on this book. There is a script that's being developed based on the book. So yeah, this is foundation, this is a blueprint. This is like if you want to build a building, well, this is your blueprint. And then you say, okay, I need that, we can do it this way, that way, that way, that way. But without script, without written word, it's very hard to articulate what are we doing here. However, I have to say, I was once involved in a movie which had no script. It was one of the kind movie. And we did it, I did it with my very, very dear friend, my friend from film school. We studied together and we did all our films together in the school. And then we did later on, he lives in Europe, so we did only 2 projects together. But that film was very unusual in many ways because he called me and said, let's do the movie. It's taking place in Berlin. And that's all I know. Like, okay, so what do we do now? I said, well, we're going to go and get inspired by the city. We're going to spend time in Berlin. We will go, you, me, and my writer, and we will come up with a story. It will be a feature film, but we don't know yet what kind of film. And that's exactly what we did. We ended up for 2 weeks going through Berlin. We hired location manager who would take us to most interesting places. And like, okay, that's interesting, that's interesting, okay. And then somehow the story started emerging. We would have this kind of, what about this? Or how about if the story is about this? Or no, how about this? And eventually, like, the outline of the story, or at least the treatment was born, like, okay, now we know what the story is about. So director and screenwriter ended up writing a script for about a month. A month later, I came back and we had a script. But now I know what we're going. Now I know all locations. I pretty much absorbed them all really well. We ended up actually making this movie, and it was the first and only time in my life that I had 3 months between coming to the project and finishing the project. From the we don't know what we're doing to it's wrap. That was great. That's what I like about filmmaking. You never know. There's no rules. There can be anything. So.
Did you speak German when you embarked on the project?
I do speak German, but the director is from my part of the world. So we spoke German, French, Czech, English, obviously, Serbo-Croatian, Bosnian. So like typical European production. All the languages are spoken on the set.
And how did you sort of drink in the city? Did you take public transportation?
Everything from public transportation. We'll get in a metro. Berlin has amazing metro, so you get and you just ride. You see it. You get a feeling. Oh, that looks cool. Oh, you get in some neighborhoods. Berlin is a fascinating city. I love Berlin. Each part of Berlin is different. It's very artistic. So it's very beautiful architecture. So the one thing about Berlin that really fascinated me is because you see the old Berlin, but also there's the new Berlin, and the new Berlin is what happened after reunification of Germany, when that new spirit of unity came back, and it's so well expressed in architecture and art in general in Germany or Berlin. So you feel the architecture that, the way how they would use this freedom, the freedom of expression through the architecture. Well, Germany always had amazing architects, but some of the buildings and stuff in Berlin is like, you cannot find it anywhere else. Why? Because, and this is not my observation, this is what I was told by our local guys. This building was basically showing that we can do whatever we want. We are free. We can, express ourselves, and that's great.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.